Today is the final devotional of the week. I hope that you've been tracking along with me as we've been talking about generosity. For most of us, being generous does not come naturally. All we need to do is watch the behavior of any child, and we will observe that the first instinct of a child is to be selfish, not generous. Learning to be generous is something that we grow into as we mature. And learning to be generous as a believer really actually has two components. The first part is about the giving. We're learning to share or give to others what God has already given us. That's the first part of learning to be generous. The second part of learning to be generous as a believer actually is to learn to trust God and that He will provide everything we need as we give. Because for some of us, we probably think it will hurt. I can't live on whatever I don't have. But learning to trust God that He's going to provide everything we need as we give. God knows it's hard to become generous because it requires faith. And so He asks us to test Him. In Malachi 3:10, God says, "Bring the full amount of your tithes, that's 10% of your income, to the temple, so that there will be plenty of food there. Put me to this test, and you will see that I will open the windows of heaven and pour out on you in abundance all kinds of good things." God in this passage says, test Him by giving Him your tithes, your money, to the temple where you worship, and see what He will do for you. Are you willing to take up God's challenge, His test? I hope you are. Maybe you're not giving now, and so here's some practical steps to help you on the path of becoming generous. These are what I'll call the steps to cheerful giving. So if you're not giving now, do the following. Write down how often and how much you receive in income, either net or gross from your paycheck. It doesn't matter. So multiply by 1%. So if you receive $100 in income, 1% is $1. If it's $1,000, 1% is $10. And if it's $10,000, 1% is $100. And if it's $100,000, it's $1,000. Give this 1% as your tithe when you first receive your paycheck. Not after you pay your bills, but when you first receive your paycheck. Do this regularly, each time you receive a paycheck during the year. Then review back to see how your life has changed. If you're giving, but giving less than 10% now, or giving irregularly, do the following. Write down your income for the entire year or last year, either net or gross, it doesn't matter. Write down how much you gave in tithes and determine the percentage you gave. Use that percentage as your starting point to determine what you will give in tithes regularly with your next paycheck. Use that same percentage for the entire year, but give regularly as you receive your paychecks. After a year, review back to see how life has changed. Once you've done this for the entire year, see how life has changed. And at that time, consider increasing your tithe by another 10%. So if you gave 1% in the first year, give 2% the next year. Or if you gave 5% in the past year, give 6%. After another year, review back and see how your life has changed. Increasing your tithe until you reach 10% the full time. This is an opportunity to test God just as He asked. So this is how you can take steps to become a cheerful giver and give the full 10%. I hope you'll follow that. For others, you may already be giving a tithe. Consider giving even more. It doesn't have to be all in one place, but following the principles, you should strive to do it regularly and thoughtfully. See what God does for you. Watch for blessings from God. Blessings are not really instantaneous. The blessings occur gradually as you give faithfully and regularly. See if your generosity becomes easier and easier. Remember, generosity involves giving to others what God has given us, our resources, our time, and our talents and abilities. God wants us to be like Him, to be generous and to love others. God wants us to be generous because we love Him and we love others. God wants us to show that we love Him and love others just like He does. We cannot truly love unless we are generous.